Hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, we'll be doing a review for Shogun Episode 3, Tomorrow is Tomorrow. For if you haven't been following along, let me give you a quick synopsis of the show. We'll talk about this specific episode, and then we'll go into a little bit of spoilers, so be warned, make sure you've seen the episode. This show is about a mysterious ship that is found marooned nearby a fishing village in Japan. Lord Yoshi Toranaga discovers secrets that could tip the scales of power and devastate his enemies. In this episode, after John Blackthorne survives the brazen assassination attempt, Toranaga realizes he must ferry his allies out of Osaka or risk certain defeat. The Toranaga and his pretty much his group had been staying in Osaka as guests, but now they realize that they have to get out of there. Now, obviously, this won't be as straightforward as it would seem, but it was definitely a really interesting episode. It's got at least two really cool sequences that I will get into, uh, and then even some really quiet moments, which this show really takes advantage of. Let's go over some of the cast real quick. So we have Hiroyuki Sanada as Yoshi Toranaga, who is really one of our main protagonists. He's the regent that I feel the show wants to be rooting for, and I don't see why you wouldn't. We also have Cosmo Jarvis as John Blackthorne. He's the marooned pirate that is now working with Toranaga. Anna Sawai is Tora Mariko. She's the translator, and she definitely has a big role as well. So I would say those three are the main, our main protagonists. We also have Tadanobu Asano as Kashigi Yabushige, Takehiro Hira as Ishido Kazunari, who is Lord Ishido is probably one of the main regents that stands out. And then, of course, we also have Nestor Carbonell as Vasco Rodriguez, who is a sailor that knows, or that at least has interacted with John in the past. And very interestingly, their relationship kind of comes back this episode. So, and let's go through the beats of the episode, and then I'll talk a little bit about the things that I enjoyed. But as I mentioned, overall, this was just another really fun episode. Um, so we open up in a bit of a quiet moment, right? Yoshi Toranaga is kind of there. Everybody's kind of regrouping after the assassination attempt, and I think they discover that the assassination attempt was not so much on Toranaga's life, but it was because they wanted to kill Blackthorne. He, the church believes that he is a great danger, and we've seen why. Right, he has explained the plans that Portugal has for the rest of the world. So definitely, that's not something that the church wants getting out there for the kingdom and for the church. It would be really not good for any of them. So I do love that the show takes the time to dwell on like these little quiet moments. Each of these episodes is probably about an hour runtime without the commercials. So it ends up being like an hour 20 minutes on the live broadcast and TV. But yeah, the show definitely takes its time with those scenes, and I think it it brings a feeling of just how much dedication and time is being put into the show. Like it feels like if you're not willing to rush through a sequence like them just watching the sunrise, like you're definitely gonna go into detail about a lot of the stuff that you're doing on the show. So I really like that. So we realize that they have to move for John and his safety. Um, Lord Ishida shows up before they can leave. There's this really interesting like inspection, right? Everything kind of has to go through like there's so many procedures and processes that they have in this system of regions. I think one of the things that I find very interesting is that while on the surface everyone seems to be polite and abiding by the rules and maintaining a certain level of like honorable discourse amongst them, they're all kind of plotting in the background. So the plotting and the sneakiness is not as overt as some other shows, but I think it's still there, which is really interesting. So uh, you know, Lord Yoshi Toranaga has to be sneaky to kind of trick Ishido into being able to escape. this show loves a good ambush in the forest, and we have another one this episode, uh, because all these regions continue to try to kill John, and if they get to kill Toranaga as a bonus, then that they'll definitely take that. Um, we get a little bit of closure with the character of they name him Buntaro in here. He is Mariko's wife or husband, that who we didn't see much in the previous episodes. It felt like he was kind of a ass, but then in this episode, he's very quickly like kind of redeemed. I feel like he's unfortunately moved out of the way of the story, and is given this end so that our three protagonists can kind of continue moving forward, and they all have something a little bit to kind of look back on. And then also, I feel like I haven't read any of the books or anything like that, but I feel like John and Mariko will end up being intertwined in some kind of way, maybe in a romantic fashion. We haven't seen hints of that. I think that it'll be an interesting exploration, because I feel like that wouldn't be a common thing in just culturally to be involved with somebody. But I mean, they're spending so much time together. She's the only one he can communicate with overall. So yeah, but yeah, big fight, big emotional scene, really cool. And then from there we get onto the boats. We see some members of the church being just like, once again, very tricky, very underhanded. They take advantage of, like, I feel like nobody suspects them even more. So I think it's even worse than like all these regions being very tricky. Um, yeah, so it just underhandedness. Like, it's almost as if like the polite version of all the messed up things that were happening in stories like Game of Thrones and stuff like that, where they're more overt about it. In this case, they're a little bit more underhanded about things, and plotting in their schemes. So the church is still definitely going to play a big part in this, because they want to keep expanding their religion. And Toranaga is an obstacle for that, because he's not one of the regions that has turned Christian. So interestingly enough, as the council has decided to impeach Toranaga, he sends a messenger resigning from the council, which by their rules means that they can't really vote, because the rules specify they need to have 5 regions voting. It's a really interesting political move. Uh, so yeah, Toranaga is definitely like 5 moves ahead of everyone, which is really cool. And the show closes out with, after the big boat race, boat fight, whatever you want to call it, closes out with a really nice sequence of Lord Toranaga asking John to teach him how to dive off a boat, and they have a race. So yeah, I think very much a feeling of the tension being relieved. They have finally escaped this one thing. Of course, things will probably escalate again, but for now, things feel safe, or at least safer, and things are going according to plan as well. So another great episode. Really, really loved um, just the visuals of this episode. I think something that goes on, like, maybe not talked about as much, is all the costuming that goes into the show and how great it looks. I don't know exactly how authentic it would be. That's not for me to talk about, but I'm sure there's people out there that are paying attention to all those details. So I would love to hear from anyone that knows a little bit more about that, and what those outfits, what the villages, what that part of the world should look like. So interestingly enough, I think they shoot a lot of this in Canada, which is interesting. I mean, just a very weird location for them to have this. They did mention that the winter season is coming as well, so I think we'll have a change in scenery, and maybe even a change in like the weather. And I also see in some of the previews that John has guns, and I don't know where I mean, maybe he got those from the ship. We'll see. We'll see what happens there. So one last thing I want to mention: Nestor Coronel as this Vasco Rodriguez character, really entertaining. I hope he comes back around. He's now boarded this ship with the Portuguese or the Spaniards. I'm not sure who they're supposed to be, um, but yeah, I'm interested to see how that plays out as well. So if you have seen this episode, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. As always, thank you for watching, everyone. Remember to share, like, subscribe, hit the bell so you know when we go live. That is most Saturdays, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Stay tuned. We have more comic reviews, trailer reactions, TV recaps, all that fun stuff here on the channel. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye-bye.